What is the secret to keeping a successful succulent collection? I'm going to be sharing all my tips with you in today's video. This will include lighting, water, soil and temperature, and also how to treat pests. So keep watching to find out some tips that you can use for your own collection. Firstly, we're going to talk about lighting. Contrary to popular belief, succulents do not like really bright direct sunlight. They actually are found in rocky formations, so they get quite a lot of shade from those rocks, and so they really do like some indirect bright sunlight. I'm going to show you a couple of succulents which one looks kind of deprived of light and one looks like it's getting enough, so I can show you what they look like and how to know if your succulents are getting enough light. So this first one, you can see the leaves on this one are quite flat, and what the succulents do is they try and flatten the leaves to increase the surface area of them so they can actually absorb some more sunlight. So this one does need a little bit more light than what it's getting. So it's just a really good idea to kind of pay attention to your succulents. Are they looking like this? Do they look like quite flat? And if so, it might be that they need that little bit more lighting than what they're getting now. If they are looking like this, where the leaves are pointing up and you haven't got any gaps in the stem, then I would say this one is definitely getting enough light. If they are starting to become elongated, like this one, so you can see here the stem is quite long and in between the leaves there's quite big gaps, and that just means the succulent is stretching a little bit for light. As you can see, the top though is still quite compact, so I'm not overly worried about this one. If the leaves at the top were also doing the same as, you know, stretching quite a lot from the stem, then I would put it in quite a brighter area. I would say this one's quite a light thirsty plant. It really wants light all the time, so it does become like this quite easily. So if one of them ones, I would head chop quite frequently to produce more pups as well. So if you're keeping your plants outside all year round, just make sure they have got shelter when the sun is at its strongest. I have mine in a greenhouse, and as you can see here, I've got some shade netting, so when it is really hot in summer, this kind of protects them from getting the full force of the sun, as they can actually get burnt. I'll just show you now one of my succulents which did get burnt this year. So on here you can see that the outside leaves on these bits are a little bit scorched. Unfortunately, that is just because of the location of it, and the sun was just really strong that day. So that will grow out, it's fine. Sunburn can kill succulents though, so you do have to be really careful. So yeah, light levels are really important, and sometimes it's kind of trial and error to get it right on the location where you keep them. A really important factor in succulent care is the soil that they are kept in. So I do 50% compost and 50% grit. Just use a standard compost. I don't use any of the succulent compost. I find they've got quite a lot of sand in them, which retains too much moisture in my opinion, and I don't find it works for me. And then I use a horticultural grit, which is just pure grit, and what it does is just makes the water being able to drain through the soil a lot quicker, so it doesn't retain as much moisture, which obviously does lead to rot, and is the biggest killer of succulents. So make sure you've got a really good gritty mixture for your succulents, and they will be very happy and last a lot longer. With regards to temperature, it's not like you have a perfect temperature for succulents. You just need to make sure they aren't too cold or too hot. So I actually heat my greenhouse, so if it ever does freeze here, it can't freeze in the greenhouse. So I think the heating comes on like 1.5–2 degrees, just to keep the chill off. Make sure the leaves don't freeze because they hold water in their leaves. Obviously, if that was to freeze, the leaves would just burst. I do not want that happening. And then in the summer, this does get around about 40 degrees. That's why I have the shade netting, just to protect them. And just make sure you have sufficient airflows. I have a fan running in the summer just to get the extra airflow. And I have vented windows and also a door. So they are really important factors as well. How to know when to water your succulents. So I always use the technique of just checking the leaves and looking at the succulents. That's the best way to find out rather than just guessing. I find that if you give the leaves a squeeze, you can see this one is really soft, and yeah, it's quite wrinkled when you squeeze the leaves sideways. When you get to the middle, still really soft. So I would say this one definitely does need a drink. Whereas this one, the leaves are really quite firm still, especially in the middle. There's a little bit of give in these outside ones, but the middle ones are really firm. So this doesn't want to drink. If in doubt as well, I would just say delay watering by a week or so. It's better that the succulents are thirsty than overwatered, because that is the biggest cause of death in succulents. Pests. How to cope with pests. So I keep my succulents, like I've said, in here and outside and also in my house. And no matter where they are, I sometimes just find the odd mealy. I hate them. They are horrible. They are very tiny, very hard to find or hard to see sometimes, but they are nasty. They have a really short life cycle, so they obviously grow really quickly and they can spread really quickly if left untreated. So what I do, if I ever see just one, I spray it straight away with a 70% alcohol mixture. This is my beautiful basil. Basil has had a tough year, but he's finally recovering. But I can see a mealy on here. So I don't know if you can see it straight away by looking at it, but it is just there. So looking closer, you can see it on the leaf there. They are nasty little things, but are very easy to kill. This is the dreaded mealy. There's not really any signs of any more on here. But like I say, they can spread so quickly. Their life cycle is very short. So what I would always do is get your 70% alcohol spray. I've got this in a little spray bottle, and just drench the plant. This won't cause any damage to the farina or the plant in any way, as long as the mealy hasn't bitten into it. And yeah, just spray it, and that will immediately kill that mealy. It will probably just sit there, so you'll have to remove it once it's dry, but just let the plant dry out completely. And then I would just treat it again in 3 to 5 days time, just to make sure there's no eggs or anything that you can't see. But yeah, mealies, as soon as you see one, just treat it. It's not worth risking leaving them, and they can just take over your plants and destroy them. If you find that your plant looks a little bit unhappy or it just isn't growing, it's always worth checking to see if there's any mealies in the roots or hiding between the leaves, because they can stunt the growth on plants, because obviously they're eating away at the plant matter. So yeah, maybe just have a look to see if there's any mealies hiding in your soil or any plants which just don't look quite right. And then just the last few bits that I do throughout the season, just to make sure I'm getting a lot of growth from my succulents and making them look as happy as possible, is I give them a feed every so often. So I use this and I find it is amazing. You need very little of it. I think it's I use a teaspoon in one of my watering cans and just do it that way. And the succulents plump up so quickly. So it's something I probably will do in springtime, just to give them a really good load of energy to kind of start waking up, because they're dormant at the moment, and just get them in a really strong state for the rest of the season, really. I do this probably once a month, maybe I could try it. I didn't do it as much last year. I probably did it about 4 times throughout the whole season, from spring to autumn. So yeah, I probably could do this a little bit more, but it's so good. It makes such a difference to the plants. They absolutely thrive when I use this. Something else I would also use is bug clear. I use this twice a year, because my succulents are in the greenhouse, I can use it. It's not safe for bees, so do not use it on plants which are outside. So yeah, I use this just to keep away any other bugs. So it's meant to treat like vine weevil, different larvae, aphids, scale insects, and mealies. So I do use this twice a year. I use it I think in spring, probably like the end of spring, and again in kind of October time before they all go dormant, just to make sure I'm not getting any of those other pests. So they are meant to treat for mealies. I can't say it is completely mealy proof. They just seem to, I just get the odd 1 or 2. I don't get infestations, which is amazing. I just seem to have to fight them occasionally. But I don't have any of these other things, so this must work. And it's just, yeah, it's worth doing just to make sure, because I've heard that vine weevil is called, are just awful. They eat through the stem of your plant. You don't know they're in the soil. They're quite nasty little bugs. So yeah, it's just worth preventing rather than having to obviously treat. So that's something I use. So that's it. They are the basic care tips which I follow to help my collection thrive. Obviously, you're always going to have trial and error with plants. You know, it's nature, it just happens. But yeah, they're kind of the steps and the rules that I follow to make sure mine are as healthy as possible. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to answer any questions you have in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe. I'd love you to join the community we have here. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.